climax of what we're going to be talking about a little bit is missions. The main idea is just doing the next thing, the one step in front of you. I think sometimes if you're anything like me, you feel like you have to go big or go home. And sometimes the biggest thing is really just the one step in front of you. And it will it'll become bigger and bigger, but it starts with one small step. So loving the one in front of you, the least of these. We see in Matthew, we're going to be going to Matthew 25. So if you have your Bibles, turn there with me. Matthew 25, starting with verse 14. I'm going to read this, and then we'll go back and unpack it a little bit. For it is just like a man, we're talking about the kingdom of heaven, it's just like a man going on a journey. He called his own slaves and turned over his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1. To each according to his own ability. Then he went on a journey. Immediately the man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more. But the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents. Look, I have earned 5 more." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave." Most translations say servant. "You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy." Then the man with 2 talents also approached. He said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. Look, I have earned 2 more talents." His master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy." Then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, "Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and I went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours." But his master replied to him, "You evil, lazy servant. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers. And when I returned, I would have received my money back with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him. And throw this good-for-nothing slave into the outer darkness. In this place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Father, I just pray that you would help us unpack this in a way that would honor you, that we would receive what you would have for us to learn today, that this would not be my own words, but yours. In Jesus' name. Okay, so we're going to be talking about doing missions wherever you are. And this is a passage of scripture that God has just put on my heart, because missions is not about going to Africa or India or someplace far away from where we are. Missions is about being a missionary, and that's carrying the light of Christ wherever you go. So that could be in your school, that could be in your community. Maybe there's another way that you can do it, or maybe you will end up going to a foreign mission someday. But doing whatever God has put on your heart, what He's called you to do, that's what you need to be doing. So we're going to start again in verse 14. And I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about what God brought to my mind as I was studying this passage. Verse 14 says, "For it is just like a man," meaning the kingdom of heaven, is like a man going on a journey. He called his own slaves and turned over his possessions to them. So the journey here, as we're equating it to missions and Christ being the master, the journey is the time in between now and in between Christ leaving earth and heaven. So we are the servants. He gives us his talents and possessions. Mom talked earlier about God giving us his armor, and that they're his armor. And in the same way, he gives us his giftings, his abilities, his talents. And he gives something different to each person, which was fascinating. In verse 15 it says that he gave one 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And then he went on a journey. God knows us. He knows our personalities. He created us with different gifts and abilities. He knows our limitations. He knows our struggles and our weaknesses. And so sometimes we can look at someone like, as we read the books that I talked about, we can look at Katie Davis and be like, oh no, she's like a really good Christian because she did something hard. But God gave her that ability, and then she stepped out in faith and did what he asked her. Maybe he's not going to ask you to do that, ever. And that's okay, because we're not all called to go to Africa. We're all called in different places. You are called, you are given talents. Notice he didn't give any of them nothing. He gives each of us something. And sometimes it's going to be something that you view as small. Or sometimes it's going to be something that you feel like is way too big for you. And that's okay. God will give you the grace for whatever he calls you to. But he has given you a talent. Verse 16 says, "But the man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more, but the man who had received 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money." We choose how we will use or not use the gifts and talents that God gives us. Do we invest them, or do we choose to hide? And I'm so guilty of this. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get afraid. Or where I say, well, I'm not creative enough, or I'm not as talented as this person, or maybe we're insecure, or we don't have enough love to do, because perfect love casts out fear. So if we really love Jesus and the people who we need to minister to, we will step outside of our comfort zone. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it will make it possible. Or sometimes we're just plain selfish. That's how it is for me sometimes, because I like my comfort zone, as it's comfortable, right? And we compare ourselves to someone else who we feel like has a better talent than we do, instead of making the most of what God has given us at this moment. And sometimes those talents will change. Sometimes God will call you to be in a season of life where you're doing one thing, and then in a couple years he's going to call you to something else, and that's okay. The main thing is that you invest it and you don't hide it. But we can definitely choose to hide what we feel called to do because it's difficult or because we're scared. And I'll just be honest, like this up here scares me. This is not my comfort zone at all. In fact, just being totally transparent here, there's been a lot of times, and some of you know that I have not wanted to be I begged God, let this cup pass, because I don't like public speaking. I would love to talk with each of you one-on-one, and that would be totally cool with me. Or in my living room in a Bible study. That is way more in my comfort zone. But when God says, Faith, I want you to speak in front of a group of girls or maybe a group of women, I had an opportunity this spring to talk to 400 women, and I was about to puke. Because it's just not my comfort zone at all. But I knew that God had called me to do that. And I have thrown up right before I speak. I didn't today, but I have before, because I get so nervous and I just say, Lord, this is not what I feel like. I'm not good at this. This is not my cup of tea. But He asks us to do things that are uncomfortable sometimes. Verse 19 says, after a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. We forget that He's coming back sometimes, don't we? That He's going to come and say, what did you do with what I gave you? And that can be an awesome thought to think about. That He's going to come back and He's going to hold us accountable for what we've been given. Verse 20 through 23. The man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, Master, you gave me 5, and look, I have earned 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. Then the man with 2 talents also approached, and he said, Master, you gave me 2 talents. Look, I have earned 2 more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful slave. You are faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. So when we take these gifts that God gives us, our faithfulness will be rewarded. It's going to be a long time before that, maybe. Or it'll seem like a long time before we actually get the fruit of that. But it's for the joy that's set before us that we push through the uncomfortability of whatever God's calling you to. Whether that's a move, or talking to somebody you don't know, or speaking in front of people, or maybe it's just, maybe there's a new girl at your school this coming year, and you're going to be prompted to go and be her friend because nobody else is being her friend. Those can be hard things, especially if they cost you friends. Maybe some of your other friends will think that's not cool. But if God asks you to do it, He will reward your faithfulness when you obey. And then verse 24 and 25, then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours. So his view of his master, and then his lack of love, really, for his master are lopsided. If you love Jesus, you'll want to serve Him. This isn't about a checklist, like we've talked about. This is not legalistic. You only get to heaven if you do a bunch of stuff right for God. You can't ever earn your salvation. But when you love Jesus, you'll want to do what He asks of you. You'll want to serve Him. You'll want to honor Him. You'll want to tell people about Him. You'll want to bring Him glory. God is loving, but He's also just, as we see in this parable, where He says, you're right, I am just. I am gathering where I haven't sown and where I haven't scattered. So you should have deposited my money in the bank and given me interest back. Because verse 26 and 27 tells us that they're his gifts, they're his talents, they're his provisions. And are we making the most of them? Are we using them wisely? At the very end we see of this chapter, or this section, we see that faithfulness is rewarded and unfaithfulness brings consequences. And I've talked to people who have lived their life and regretted that they didn't follow something that seemed hard at the moment for God. And I think about that. What would it be like to live your whole life in the safety of what was comfortable? And to wonder, what would it be like if I would have obeyed? That would be a huge consequence, just that feeling of regret. So your mission, if you decide to accept it, is simple. It's just obey Jesus. And that's going to look totally different for each of you. For some of you, that's going to be in your homes, being obedient right now to your parents, to what they have for you, to being missionaries in your schools, in your communities, to loving people well. I think anywhere you go for the rest of your life, God is going to want you to love people well. So it's not about, if you were at the Michigan retreat a couple weeks ago, sometimes we set up people and we think, oh man, I could never be like Liza Hartman because she does these amazing things with urban ministry. And she does, but she's called to that, and she made it very clear that not everybody is. And she's just learning to take the next right step, what God calls her to do, to obey in that. But what makes your heart break? What has God put on your heart that maybe makes you, your compassion goes out to that? It could be abortion, the problem with abortion, or it could be working at a pregnancy center. It could be the refugee crisis that we're watching right now. It could be orphans. It could be a whole lot of things. And we sometimes sit here and think, well, what can I do? I'm just a teenage girl. And it doesn't mean that you have to go far away in a different country. There's things you can do right now to be helping those causes. If that's a talent that God's given you, a gifting, something that makes your heart break, then God has put that in there for a reason. And so ask Him, just be honest. Say, Lord, what can I do that right now that you want me to do? And then just take that next right step, one step. The power of one step is huge. I heard a message one time, I don't even remember where, but I can sometimes listen to the different problems that we see in our world, and I just think, oh, I just want to run over there and help them, with this refugee crisis, or, this flooding problem that we see in the South right now, or wherever, and it's just, there's always a problem somewhere. There's people hurting, and you just feel like, what am I supposed to do here? And I heard this preacher say, you can't do everything, but what you can do, you must do. And so I think that's really where we need to remember that you can't do everything. You can't be involved in every human plight that is on the face of the earth right now. But God has something for you to do. And you need to do that one thing. You must do that one thing, because there's a hole if you don't. He's given you that talent for a reason. So is it your school, your home, your neighborhood, your work, maybe your 4-H club, your church? Maybe there's even a ministry in your church, whether it's teaching Sunday school to a group of kids, or maybe it's reaching out to a little neighbor kid. We regularly have little kids show up to our door. It's hilarious. We have tons and tons of neighbor kids on our corner, and part of which are ours, but there's a lot of little kids around, and whenever a bike breaks, they come to our door and they say, "Is Abraham here?" And Abraham will fix their bikes. But you know, it seems like a little thing, but to those little people that are very, very little, that's huge to them, because if they can't ride their bike, it's like the end of the world, you know? And so maybe it's just small ways like that that God is going to use you to bless people and love people. I believe that each of you were created for such a time as this. For this moment in history, He has something special for each of you to do. And so what does that look like? Maybe God is putting it on your heart right now, or He's been putting it on your heart, and you're just kind of nervous. What is that going to look like? How is that going to make me uncomfortable? I don't know where to go from here. Like, how do I dive into that? And even I'll just share a little bit from the story of Polished Cornerstones and how it came to be. This was never going to be something that we did multiple events a year. Ever in my wildest dreams did I think that. It was just something that we started off just having Bible studies, being friends with girls. That was just, God had put on my heart. I wanted to disciple. I wanted to love girls and show them Jesus. And when I was 25, my dad, he knew about this, that God was awakening something in me that needed to be encouraged. And parents, or maybe you'll have mentors in your life that will just kind of kick you out of the nest when you need that. And so he said, I think it's time that you pass on what you've been given. And so he arranged the first conference, which was in a basement with 15 girls. And I said I would go, it was a 2-day conference with 15 girls, and it was amazing, but it was very, very stretching for me. Because again, I don't like public speaking. And then the next year, God said, I want you to do this again in a different city. And so I did, and then after that, people started coming and saying, I think you should do this, and I can get behind this vision, and how about you do a website? And I was like, whoa, this is not on my radar. This is not at all what I thought that God was going to do. But, and people ask me, what do you think in the future? What do you think that Polished Cornerstones, what's your dreams for Polished Cornerstones? I said, I don't have a dream. I tell people, I don't have a dream for Polished Cornerstones. I'm just trying to keep up with Jesus. And so the next step that he says, I hope that I have the courage and the strength to not hide, but to say yes. And I have no idea what that's going to look like. But I know that whatever he calls each of us to, and this is not just, faith has a different set of circumstances than I do. But we say that we serve the same God. And so if he calls you to something, he will equip you for it. That's guaranteed every time. He will bring people that will hold your arms up, hold your hands up and say, I can support you in this. I can pray for you. I can love you through the tough spots. God has brought an amazing team of people that have come and helped with Polished Cornerstones and have totally different giftings. And it's the beauty about God does give us different talents. There's things that I can't do in ministry. And so he's brought along other people, like technology is my terrible suit. I cannot deal with technology, and so God has brought people that keep up our website, and praise the Lord, because I don't know very much about that. But God will just equip you for whatever He calls you to. And it's all about following the Great Commission. Let me just read that for you. Matthew 28, verses 18 through 20. Then Jesus came near and said to them, "All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." There's a couple of things I want to point out with that Great Commission. This is not, first of all, the Great Commission is not optional. It's for every Christian. And the first thing is that because of all authority has been given to Jesus, that is something we can call on. He says, because I'm all powerful, that's why you can go out and make disciples. And He's never, ever going to leave you. See that at the end of that section. So I just like to encourage you, ask yourself some questions right now. Maybe you have a talent that you went and hid somewhere. You know it's there, but maybe you're afraid of stepping out. And so you went and hid it in the sand somewhere. Or maybe you know you need to do this, but you're just not sure that it'll pan out. Let me just encourage you that you serve a limitless God. I mean, this is the God that breathes the stars out. He's not limited at all by our small humanness. He's not. So what are your talents? And which servant are you? Maybe I'd just like to take a minute for you to just think about this. Just close your eyes and just ask God to put whatever He's putting on. God has already put something on your heart that He wants you to jump in with 2 feet. And maybe you just need a good somebody to pray for you, somebody to say, "Yep, you can do this because I know you're Jesus." And so if that's you, I would love to pray for you personally, or really any of the staff girls would love to pray over you, to listen to your heart of maybe the mission that you feel like God's put inside of you. We would love to do that personally. And sometimes that's what it takes to just take that first step, to know that someone has heard your heart, somebody with skin on that can say, "Yep, you can do this. I believe that God is big enough and that you are capable with His hand." But even if you don't know what that is yet, I'd still like to pray for you, because I know that God has given everyone a talent. And maybe He's not awakened that in you yet, but He will. And so I just like to pray over you right now. Father, I just lift up these young women and women to you. Lord, you know where each of them are. You know their hearts. I know that each of them want to serve you. But Lord, there's so many roadblocks sometimes. And Father, I pray that we would not be. generation that hides. But we would be a generation of young women that would say, yes, Lord. Whatever that looks like. Father, I have no idea what kind of missions are in this room. I know it's big. Men. You chose 12 men, and they turned the world upside down. What you could do with these girls. Father, I pray for boldness. I pray for wisdom, for guidance. I pray that you would raise up mentors that would guide these girls, that would hold up their hands, push them to great heights. God, I pray that you would keep us willing, keep us humbly asking the next one step. Help us keep our radar on for that one girl, that one person, that one child that we're supposed to minister to right now. We don't want to be limited by what the world says we can do. Lord, I pray that you would send us out from today stronger, that we would be geared up for whatever you have. Lord, some of these girls are about to hit school, the school year. Some of them already have. You have no idea what kind of battles are up ahead, but you've equipped us. You're sending us out as missionaries to your world. Help us be faithful. And Lord, I pray if there's a girl here that just needs to share what you put on her heart. She needs to be prayed over personally. Lord, I pray that you give her the boldness to come to one of us so that we can hold up their hands and tell them what an amazing God you are. We thank you for using weak vessels, choosing us, giving us talents. Thank you, Lord.